Good evening, everyone. I am Tanisha Bakshi, and it is my privilege to host today's special homecoming event at NIFT Gandhinagar. This event is a celebration of our alumni, their inspiring journeys, and the profound connections we share as a community. I am delighted to welcome each one of you here today to honor our esteemed guest and fellow alumnus. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude to Ms. Tanu Kashyap, IAS, respected Director General NIFT, and Professor Dr. Sudha Dhingra, Dean Academics of NIFT, Professor Dr. Sameer Sood, Director NIFT Gandhinagar, for their unwavering support and leadership, which continue to guide our institution to greater heights. To guide us through this exciting session, I would like to invite on stage our moderator, Mr. Asid Bhatt, a distinguished faculty at member of NIFT Gandhinagar. With his vast knowledge and expertise, he will lead the discussion and make it an enriching experience for all of us. Now, I would like to call upon our guest of honor and proud alumnus of NIFT Gandhinagar, graduation batch of 2001, Fashion Design Department, Mr. Himanshu Shani. Mr. Himanshu is the co-founder and director of 1111, a contemporary press label under Cell DSGN Private Limited. Hailing from Gujarat, a land renowned for its rich textile and craft traditions, Mr. Shani laid the foundation of his design journey here at NIFT Gandhinagar. He further honed his skills with an MA in fashion design from Domus Academy, Milan, Italy, and gained global exposure working alongside renowned industry stalwarts like Renzo Rosso, Giuseppe Menta, and architect Renato Montanier. With 1111, Mr. Shani has built a brand that seamlessly blends with India's traditional craftsmanship with modern luxury. His work emphasizes sustainability by creating direct link with farmers, weavers, and artisans, preserving indigenous techniques like tie-dye, natural dyeing, and block printing. His journey exemplifies how local craftsmanship can thrive on the global stage while honoring heritage and empowering communities. We are immensely proud to welcome him back to share his inspiring story with us today. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Vishal Gupta, CAC NIFT Gandhinagar, to present a formal vote of welcome to our distinguished guest and moderator.
Thank you.
Let us now officially begin this wonderful homecoming session. With great excitement, I hand over the microphone to our moderator, Mr. Asid Bhatt, to take the discussion forward. For all the viewers joining us online, you can post your questions and we'll be taking them at the end of the session.
Thank you, Tanisha. I hope I'm audible there, yeah? It's a great privilege and honor to moderate such a session, especially representing NIFT, an institution, and this seems to be quite a historical moment in terms of institutional memory that NIFT has created out of this program, homecoming program of inviting various alumni and talking to them about their journey and their success stories and their feedbacks and experiences and observations. So to begin this session, when I was given this task, I was thinking like how to moderate such a session and what are the formats of public discourse, especially in art and design. And the only such an event that I was part of was Hans Husbrith marathon interviews. And so Hans Husbrith always started with this question that how did you come to fashion, or how did fashion come to you rather? So if you can just tell us something about that.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting. It's a pleasure to be here back, particularly to share the journey where it all started, and yeah, so I'm happy to be here. I think it start. I'm an Ahmedabad boy, so I'm born and brought up here, and I did my schooling here, and in Ahmedabad there are many design colleges, and ID is one of them, and Sept Architecture is again another. There's a kind of a creative hub, and NIFT was around I think 4-5 years old at that time, and I had a very bad schooling time, and I kind of struggled to get out of my school, and I was just waiting to exit and get into any creative industry. Um, and NIFT was the one which I kind of ended up picking, and I decided to work here, and I was fortunate that I was here in Gandhinagar, and where I studied. So for me it was an easy pick, but for me I wanted to do in a creative world, and so the options were some of them in Ahmedabad and the NIFT, which kind of turned out.
Okay, so in hindsight, if you can tell us about, what are the key takeaways from your journey at NIFT, as well as later you went to Domus in Milan, and how does it inform really your practice today?
Um, so I say that the people who taught me kind of made me. So I was really fortunate, the guys who taught me, particularly in the NIFT, where I had started my journey from the person who taught me design to drawing to, the whole 3 years which I spent. That time it was only a 3 years course. So that kind of really made my ground. One of the thing I used to do in NIFT very highly was I used to do a lot of competitions, and these competitions kind of opened up a whole new world for me, and I traveled the world because I managed to travel to, me and Vishal here we went to Japan, to Gifu together. I was there in Daegu in Korea, and these are all fashion competitions I used to do, and I never came first, but I used to get second prize in all these places. But the fun part was you get to free travel, you get an exposure, you meet other people, you see the world, you seeing the work. And one of the other competition kind of got me a scholarship, half a scholarship in Domus, and I landed up in Milan right after my NIFT. 2002, straight after my NIFT, I did my masters in 2002. So 2002 January to 2002 December. It was a 1 year masters in Domus. So basically, yeah, I finished my masters in 2003. I was done with my masters course as well.
So the key takeaway, as we understand, is naturally the participating in these competitions, and through competitions, traveling first to Japan and Korea, and then to Milan. So, uh, I mean, can you, if you can elaborate more on maybe the student life at NIFT, the student life at Milan, and how did it shape your ideas, and how did you see fashion then? Uh,
So, as I said in my NIF time, I was very fortunate the people who taught us, and that whole kind of built up a whole culture of in our class, in our batch, of what we were learning, and that helped me to even look at design in a, I would say the basics were really getting cleared. How do we look at things? And there was a lot of curiousness which was built in, and we used to question everything that we were doing, and that led us in the way we were designing, the way we were looking at things, the way we were creating anything. And I think in the competition it kind of came out because I was looking at some of the materials which we will never question it. So it's like, how can an interlining becoming a garment in that time, and then I would create a product out of an interlining, which are fusings which we use. So what would it do? Because then you have a seamless garments because you fuse everything. But this I'm talking in like the year 2000. Now of course there is a lot of technologies and various other things, but yeah, so because our campus was in a forest, there was nothing around the campus. So if you step outside the campus, there was not even a tea stall. The closest tea stall would be 2-3 kilometers away, and it's pitch dark. So you there's nothing, not even a phone call. Of course, mobiles didn't exist. There was no STD PCO, so it was just a building in a forest space. Ahmedabad was very far away, so you don't have access to anything. So it basically you are spending time by yourself within and trying to think and build things and design things, and I think that I enjoyed the most, because you are spending more time by yourself and you're trying to evolve and trying to anything you get and you get inspired by. Today we have of course access to too many information, but at that time any smallest things and we will try to dissect it to the maximum level and try to make a whole a session around it between ourselves, between our groups of friends, and we enjoyed that time. I would say that space and everything kind of built us. So and when went to Italy, it was a whole another opposite side, because you have a completely different contrast. It's full of brands. Like Delhi to Italy, you will have still some similarity, but from a Gandhinagar to a Milan, it's a whole another contrast of world. And that was, I was trying to absorb whatever was there, and the way I was taught, I was looking at all these brands and the way how things were there, from a store to the product. I mean, it was beautiful. It was kind of, you were celebrating what Italian culture was, and I was really enjoying that part, because India has a lot of similarities to it, and that's what I realized, because we are kind of not appreciating what we have. And in Italy, that was something was been appreciated, and people have built from a decades and decades, and that's what the world is kind of cherishing it. And in India, we were not doing that, and that's something I realized in those couple of years when I was there, which is after the Domus as well. So the journey kind of helped me in going through, and I would say it kind of sculpted me well. There was an interesting, because I just met Vilu Mirza, who was the director at that time, just before coming here. So I kind of went and visited and met her, and she said that you've been kind of been sculpted well through your time. So yeah, I think she was right. I was fortunate, or I used the right time and opportunity, and I managed to learn something really well.
If you remember maybe some key events, or maybe your academic exercise, or maybe some competition which you really think brought the best out of you there, and then you could actually build on that part, or even your keen interest in artisanal making, the idea of craft. I mean, does it have?
Oh yeah, I mean, there are many things. I can keep going on and on. I mean, in our, so I'll share one of my NIFT examples, and something might be in Italy. So in NIFT, we were taught basic design by an architect. His name is Ashish Dave. I don't know if he still comes here or not, but
he still does.
so we were the first batch ever. So I'm going 25 years back, or 26 years back when he taught. So you can imagine what Ashi would be at that time. So he ended up making us conceptualize and design an entire solar system. So, and we ended up designing different planets within our class as a group, and a planet and an evolution of a planet, and the creatures inside the planet, and entire ecosystem to everything, how that planet was, or what that creatures would be, or the language, or anything, a food, or anything to everything was been done, and it became a 6 months project from a 1 day exercise. And we ended up just drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing, like thousands of drawings. And of course people were complaining, some of the students, because what is fashion in this? But I felt that was the real hardcore design, because we are questioning everything, and that's what I would say fashion is. Because if you question, then you get something new design, and I really appreciated that whole exercise, which kind of engraved into us how do we perceive things, or how do we look at any things we were doing. And that kind of went on through the life of whatever we've been doing. One of the examples in Italy, what happened was I was working with a person called Giuseppe Menta. This is not a name which anybody would know. He passed away a few months back. In his 80s. He was a classmate of Giorgio Armani, and I was fortunate to work with him. He was a printmaker, one of the finest artists and a printmaker I've ever seen. And when I visited his workshop in Italy, in Como, and Como is known for textile silk thing, and he had seen our work in one of the exhibits right after Domus. I had exhibited a work, and he liked some of the things we were doing, and then he invited us to his studio, and his studio had a printing unit was shut down, so he only had samples and fabrics. But from a window where his office was, you can see this hanger which had screens, so silk screens which has artwork exposed on it. So a hanger which would have 10,000 screens of 60 inches in a height, 30 inches in width, with his artwork on it exposed, 10,000 of them, and I can see it from a building, and they were beautiful artworks. It's like one of the shot from a Matrix movie when this guy dreams and these guns just comes in an old, and that's like how that scene was. And it was so sad because everything was shut down and these screens were just lying there exposed, which were used 20 years back. So he was of course a good friend with Giorgio Armani or a Josephon and Missoni and all the brands, because he used to give some of the best prints. So we did a collection together and we made some things in India. So he's a printmaker, so he designs prints, offers this to the brands, designers who like it, they buy it from him, and then they use it. So we did some collection in India together, and some of the work we did was with the Khadi Gram Udyogs and in here, and we built one of the Khadi knits in 2003 or 4. Interestingly, they still have it in their files even today if you go, because that's how they store it in these in this Khadi Gram Udyogs. So we made some developments. We would have sent it to, he would see something and like it, and he would send it directly to Giorgio Armani because he thinks he would love it, because he knows them well. So and they would use it. He would use it for his one garment. 4-5 meter comes, he makes a garment, salesman samples, they will order 30-40 meters, and we will send 40-50 meters for their salesman sample, and that's when a lot of QC guys will come in and a lot of rejections will come out. And the rejection comes out because the way we handle the fabric would have a problem because of the needles we use or the way we put it on our addas, and there are various aspects, and this is in 2004 we're talking. But what kind of struck me is that when he, as an Armani, saw something, he really felt that this has so much of a soul into it, as the material, how it is made. And that's what kind of struck to me. I'm like, the world has not seen anything, because this is what we have been living with and it has been around us. And Italy has kind of lost it, and India has so much more to offer. And that kind of opened up a new, I think, a horizon for me, you can say. So yeah.
So looking at material with this idea of material itself has its mind, its spirit, and the soul, as you said, like Armani felt in materiality more than the material, right? The soul of it. And
without seeing where it is made, just by looking at the piece itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he could feel that. He had that sort of connect with material.
Yeah.
And that's something quite incredible, because now we are talking about the new materialism and matter as active agent rather than a passive, inert, inceptical of form. And now we are talking about that sort of idea in design. But tell us more. I think the students would be more interested in understanding, like, how did you go about creating those works? What was the process like? How did you approach material? How did you derive your inspirations? And what was the creative process like?
Yeah, I think there is a way how your brain works, because you see something and you keep seed into your brain and you keep thinking about it, and there is a time when everything comes together, when you come across something, because if you keep thinking and questioning, that's when the development happens. So I'll kind of fast forward to 2011, because we started the brand in 2008. So I did a consultancy from 2003 till 2008, where I worked with various brands. So Diesel was one of them, I worked with Andrea Rosso, who is like a Diesel's Now sustainability ambassador. Fantastic work he does. He's Renzo's eldest son. Some really good work he did even that time. So I was fortunate to work with these people, and that also happened through some work they saw of mine, and it kind of triggered into those opportunities. But in 2011, when we started working with a craftsman in Kutch called Jabbar Khatri, he was a very famous name. Everybody, if you Google him, his name would become with a Bandini. He's one of the finest Bandini artisans today, even that time. And he's traveled the world. He knows what is happening in the world. He's really well exposed. All the big designers in India have been working with him. But in 2011, I had visited him, and when I saw a Bandini, and what I felt was coming back to NIFT, we were living with whatever we had in our archives and the books and the samples. And the designers we were looking at is like Issey Miyake, Yohji Yamamoto, Comme des Garçons, a little bit of it, but mostly it was Issey Miyake and Yohji Yamamoto's work. And Prit Please was something very fascinated for me at that time, what he was doing, some really fantastic forms and the work, because the contemporary side always keep kicking into our head. And when I saw Bandi, and I felt, why is Bandi never done on a garment? Or, why is it done only on a fabric or a scarf or a stole? And that's when a whole new trigger came. Let's just do Bandi on a garment made. So we first stitch a garment and then we do a Bandi over it. So what happens is that the product will shrink down. And if you wear it, it kind of opens up. So how can you play with that crushness of the Bandi? And this came while just looking at the textures. And this is not something which was there, but this was just by questioning things, and it triggered. And it took a couple of years for us to crack that whole process, because you have to resize your entire patterns, you have to re-engineer the patterns. Shoulder will be a different way of looking at it, sleeve would be different, garment would be different. But a beautiful new form came out. When you do all over Bandi done on something which is just a simple garment, it would be a new texture which it was giving. And then new forms we started making and started playing with it, and we still been doing it last 10 years. We do Bandi over a fabric also, but we do a largely over the garment. And the other good part is that you can make an artwork flow on the garment. Because when you make a print and when you cut a garment, then a print gets also deducted, right? So, but when you do something over a garment, then it travels on the garment. Then your artwork is flowing from a front to back, top to bottom. And that's a beautiful part of it. And every dot can be, designed. And that opened up a whole new opportunity for us. And since that 2011, we keep looking for a possibility of how can we restrain this crushness. So if you get into that product, it should not get flat open. The reason I'm sharing this story is because it's not like you think of something and that's where it ends. Sometimes you have a thought process which is going on. So something we wanted to make a Bandi garment which can kind of keep shrinking and opening. It doesn't deform even if you wash it. That idea took us 10 years to build, and today we are able to make that new innovative material where the Bandi will not get flat iron, so you can still live into it for as many days you want, and you can wash it. So some processes takes time, some processes happen very instantly, but there is no one textbook way of design process it, but there are ideas which are there and you keep implementing it, and there are smaller ideas together, then you see a larger idea coming in. Because when you design a collection, there are larger collections you're making, not of just 2-3 looks, but we are making anyway 30-40 looks. Every looks can be a different story. Smaller 4-5 stories can also become a larger stories of 40 pieces. So it's not necessary that one idea is what we will stick to, because that's when you get a variety of things and you learn to explore new ideas and new possibilities. So it will be keep open process, and we'll keep bringing in new thoughts in whatever we try to develop, from new artist to the artists we're looking for, from a music, from traveling to different cultures, different techniques of crafts, can be a different fabric which inspires you, can be a visual which inspires us, can be a song which can inspire. It can be from any different direction. So we open to, yeah, different things. But the way we keep questioning is what helps us, because if you don't question whatever we've been doing, then it doesn't trigger. I mean, that's what I would say. That curiousness kind of keep bringing us new ideas.
And so if we go back to you coming back from Italy to India, and then you land in Delhi, and you are actually starting this cultural scene in Khas village, and there was nothing there in Khas village, and suddenly bar at TLR and Grey Garden, and you were actually the one who actually started that cultural scene in Khas village, and what we see now in Khas village is very much part of Himanshu. I still remember Chandan, the tea guy. You go to Chandan and say, you are Himanshu's friend, and he's like, you brought him from Bihar to Khas village, you set him up there, and so these stories are still there, and you were there. I also remember Himanshu himself was running this bar at TLR, so not just in fashion but also cooking, also cultural activities. Many prominent artists of that time, like even Subodh Gupta and Rax Media, they used to hang out to your bar at TLR in Khas, and from there, suddenly, I mean gradually, the 11/11 idea came in. So how this the sustainable, slow, cultural aspects of life were kind of embodied in 11/11 brand, and if you can just speak, tell us more about that.
So, so I'll do back and forth of my time zone. So before NIFT, at the same time, I was also fascinated by architecture, and I wanted to be in an architecture. And my minimum score of my 12th would not let me even apply for an entrance exam of architecture. So there was no discipline existing for me. But that whole architecture kind of stayed with me, because an architect hired me to do things for diesel in Italy. So in Italy also some architect found me. And this whole architecture part, or the way how I look at space and all that, keeps coming back. And what he mentioned about when I was moving back to India in 2006, and we were looking for a design studio space, and it needed to have an inspiring space, and it can't be just in any building. And that time, Hoskas, even today, it has a beautiful lake. It's a 5 square kilometer of a green space. It's a beautiful. If you enter Hoskas, the temperature drops down. It gets colder in winter, but it gets cooler in the summer. Like, it's really green. So, and there is a lake in there, and there is a monument there. So I had a dinner in one of the old restaurant there. That time was Bistro, and I remember that place. So I went and hunt for a place, and we found one building, and we took that building and rented it out, and we made it into our design studio. And space also inspires people. I feel it can change the way how you look at things. So it was important where we design and where we work. So we took that place, which helped us, and that also one of our partners who kind of came in and made into this restaurant called TLR, which he's talking about, which also made the Oscars even more happier and brought in a lot of other selected people to that area. But the interesting part was one of my partner, who is also a co-founder of 1111. Her name is Mia Morikawa, and she is in New York. She's based there right now. So we have a setup in New York there. And she found us in Hoskas. We had a very small installation we had done there in a 300 square feet space. So like from this table till that wall. And we made a very beautiful menswear pop-up clothing store. And she was passing by and she saw that store and she entered and she might have shopped something, and that made us started an interaction. And she's an amazing artist who does fine art work. I mean, she's from Central St. Martin's, and a very she's half Japanese and half Hawaiian. She lives in New York, and she became part of the brand and that place kind of made us meet us, and it's been a long way we've been working together. She comes from a beautiful culture, and where her story comes in, and she brought in a whole new thought of seed to a stitch story of the brand. And we started questioning each and every bit of what we've been doing, and that we started identifying how we can work towards the journey from where the cotton is coming from all the way till the making of a product. Principally, that is a way how a design or anything we look at. But we kind of, if we question it, then we'll go deeper into it. So in India, there is a lot of indigenous cotton existing. There are a lot of plant-based dyes which used to happen. There's an hand spun industry which is happening. There's a hand weaving side which is another part. So we started dissecting every aspect of it and started going deeper into how that product is made. So whatever we make or whatever I'm wearing today, we kind of question even what kind of threads we will use, who are the makers behind it. Because when you work with the artisans who have been doing these things for almost 10,000 hours, they have been doing it. For me, they are already like an Olympian. And when you work with them, because they're passionate of what they're doing, they kind of bring soul to your product, what you make. So even Mia calls it that we do things which are made in meditation. So, and that's because the way it is made, the product carries that. And so it became a, I would say, a basic hygiene that you do it in this way. It's not something, a fashion that we want to do it in the sustainable. This is how you do it. So once you taste something nice, you cannot go to something worse, right? You'll always go back, even if it's a good tea or a good food to it. So we now tasted something, this is what you can do, so we'll never step down from there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember even living in one of your apartments
yeah.
in Khas, and Mia lived on the third floor, and also
By the way, Hitesh also did a catwalk, fashion walk for us in one of the shows. So we made him walk, I think 7, 8 years back.
I did.
Sorry, Asit, we made him do that. So yeah, there have been a different interaction with us. It's happened.
Yes, and I remember also coming to your house, and you had a huge canvas next to your bed, and you were painting, and there were paints and brushes, and I mean you were not there at house, and we were served khichdi and kadi by I think Virendra, and I was curious. That's why I asked, this various facets that you have, that you paint, you also cook, you're very sensitive about, spaces, and also creating this cultural environment, spaces in Hoj Khas, collaborating with Mia, who comes from a graphic design background, and, so, I mean, tell us more about maybe these collaborations, and also, because you are also, like, what I see or understand is that you always have questioned the status quo, and you have brought a great deal of change in Indian fashion, not just off the ramp but also on ramp. You have done many shows, and you have brought these performative aspects on ramp, the live music, and all that. So this whole idea of pushing the boundary of fashion and collaboration, I think that's something which the students would be really interested in knowing.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that you can't just do anything by yourself. You always you need the right people together with you. You need the right team. You need the right surrounding, and then you build something together. It's not something possible alone. So whatever we've been doing, there are a lot of people who have worked together. Of course, Mia has played a very important role in various different aspects which we have built today. There are many other collaborators who have come together. I'm not a like a great cook of what I'm doing, but this is something we put together as a restaurant when different people came together and they took it, and I would be playing one part of the role. But the the collaboration for me is very important because that keeps bringing new life and a new energy in whatever we try to do. And there have been various instances where we would have interacted with different people. In Khas, we started a store where it was the first ever a design store where we brought in different designers together to be part of our store. So 1111, Pero, Amit Agrawal, Mayank Mansinkal, Peter Das Kohli. I mean, all these, we were all together in a one store and we were retailing together. So there was a concept which we kind of brought together. Let's sell retail together. We share a space together. So various these experiments we used to do. So we were open of doing various things and bring people together and kind of open up new boundaries for us. Sharing work of what we've been doing and what others are doing. We always been doing a live music in our shows from day one in 2009, 2010. I mean 2009 when we did the first show, because we like to work with the musicians because they are again another creative world of how you can create it. And yeah, I mean this is something always open to. We want to work with people who are creators. So if we are showing clothes on a model, we would rather show it on a people who have achieved something or they're representing what they are. And we would like them to carry our clothes, or people who know our brands, and that's with them we would be doing a lot of our fashion shows. So we've done shows with non-model people, we have people from different age groups. So yeah, we've been experimenting in all forms possible. There's nothing to lose here, you're just sharing your whole story here. So be open to this whole ideas, and this always comes in when you want to do it. So it's never been a close call. I mean, there are new ideas always keeps coming in.
And since your studio is in podcast, you also teach sometimes. You conduct workshops. You are, going to this, design institute and interacting with students, doing some exercises with them. So what is, your, I mean, the cliche way to put it is piece of advice, to the young creative minds and aspiring designers, fashion designers particularly. I mean, what do you tell them? How do you shape their minds? How you orient them towards fashion, and what goes on in your classroom?
Yeah, I mean, it's been like 4-5 years that I went back. There is a college next to our workshop called IIED. So I think today's world is very different. When I shared that we were in one building where the accessibility to the world wasn't there, right? So you are just limited to whatever you can see and touch and feel. So anything would inspire us, and we'll dissect it and kind of make a collection or make a whole thought process around it. Today's world, you have so much of excesses, but I think we're missing out on the beauties, and we're kind of an overdose and getting into a boredom of a lot of information coming in, and we're not getting inspired to anything because there's so much of coming in, and we've been missing out understanding of what are the tools and what are the skills and what is that we need to know, because this is just a tool which has multiple tool inside. This is like a bag which carries multiple tool, and if you don't know how to use this tool, I mean, whatever tools are inside this bag, I mean, you will not be able to. You will just be not able to achieve what you want to do it. So for me, having a skill is very important, and going back to the college was for me was an important thing. That how can I just give you an essence of what is important as a skill. Knowing a Photoshop is not a skill for me, right? So what is that skill which I'll have? A design thinking cannot just happen in 2-3 years. It will come and develop with years. It's like a basic calculations I was doing. Like if my fit making, pattern making is one of my skills to do, because whatever I draw, then I can sculpt it down. or a garment making side, or a textile side, or understanding of materials, or a drapery. But how many hours am I spending on all this? Because um, if I think that in 4 years I come out and I am a complete fashion designer and I can go and design things, then I think I'm making a mistake, because I eventually spend some hundreds, 200, 300, 400 hours on working on something. And to master something, it takes thousands and thousands of hours. So if you're not investing that time, I don't think you have able to have achieved that skill. So it is an importance of a skill which is there. If you have that skill, anyone in the world would like to have you to do things. If you are master of that skill, or anybody will look into it. So today, we as a brand have built some skills which we have. So if people come to our studio, what we doing, like, I don't know anybody in the world has been doing it at that scale or in that way what we doing it. So our whole presenting it, our whole confidence is very different to discussing and sharing our knowledge with them. And this has taken years. It is not something possible in lesser years time. I mean, lesser months time or hours time. So I'm trying to say that the example of Olympian, which I took, that the weavers are or the master craftsmen are, because they spend so many hours in mastering that. So if a weaver works for 7 years, 8 years, he's already spent 10,000 hours on his loom. In what thing we have spent 10,000 hours? I will just question that. And if we're not, then I don't think we can master it. And this is something all your online data will even tell you, because this world is about the new data, and it's a very simple data. How many hours you spend on it, that builds your skill. So if you're able to do that, it'll answer it. And this is something I'm trying to bring into the teaching side, that we need to master it. So there are few aspects to become a fashion designer. Which one you have it and you master that, everybody would like to work with you. Yeah.
Richard Sennett, in his book Craftsman, talks about spending 6,000 hours to learn any skill, or to learn it significantly. And since you are looking at the skills by the artisans, sorry, this is, I already feel like a cyborg with all this around me. But yeah, so that's a very, very interesting point that you put forward. So, as part of this moderation, we had asked students to give some questions, and then we kind of summed it up in the questions that I was, putting forward. But there was one question that kind of stood out due to its naivety. I mean, it's a naive question. But the same question was asked by a girl called Lily in May 2012 to President Obama. There the question was, if you were to dine, and here the question is, if you were to design a garment for a man or a woman, dead or alive, who that person would be?
For many people, I mean, it can be everyone, I mean, inspire us. It's not something one specific. Yeah, I mean, there are people whom you wish to do it, and um, I'm not like made a list of people, but the people's work whom you inspire to see. So it can be an artist, it can be from people like a Bharti Kher who's doing some fantastic work, to a filmmaker like a Zoya Akhtar who's doing. So people who inspire us in what they're doing, and I would like to dress them up and how we look at clothing, because it's a whole another medium. Like a chef can design beautiful food which you will like to taste it, and the same way we make a clothes which kind of make you feel, which is different. An architect who can make a house which can inspire you. Yeah, so I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, I picked this question. We don't. I
So I picked this question also for its answer, because Obama's answer was Mahatma Gandhi. And that brings to the next series, because I also remember you said once, when you go to teach these students, or you go to work with these students rather, you make them spin. You make them spin for hours and hours before they can pick a pencil and idea. So tell us more about your sort of take on Gandhi, and how in fashion you see some kind of maybe some correspondence of that idea.
No, so I would say, I'm not gonna get into Mahatma Gandhi and where and what, because there is some phenomenal work, and I was listening about him today in the morning itself. Just coincidentally came in one of the movie, but we do a lot of hand spinning, and I see there is a beauty in an hand spun yarn. Not about just getting a livelihood and working, but it's also what that fiber, when it is low spun, how can that be better for a clothing? How will that impact to a person when something which is spun low twist and you make a garb around it, and how can that help a body to breathe better? So I really enjoy that, and we can do like 500 count hand spun, which is like the very fine yarn. You can't even see that yarn. So people are been spinning that even today. There used to be even 1500 count, which is, of course, you don't get it today. So machines and industries don't do that. The reason that whole hand spinning exercise came in the thing is because of the skill part we were talking. These hands can do the wonders, These hands are not used to just scroll on the social side, but they can do something really beautiful. And that whole drawing of a yarn, if you do it, and if you understand, because that is one skill set you are building, and to start from that, what all one can do with just your hand, coming from a fiber all the way the making of a garment. So that's the process and the journey we were trying to build. Yeah, I would say that's where it came from. But as a brand, we like to work only with an hand spun yarn, and that's what we've been doing across the country, from Ladakh to West Bengal to Gujarat, and they are all different kind of cottons which are available, from a silk to cotton to wool. But it's like, yeah, it's a back and forth of a journey. I mean, we learn something. How can I share it with you guys, and how can we just celebrate that? I feel if a farmer's son does designing, he would look at design in a very different way, because he's been doing, if he was working in a farm field, he has an hands-on things of doing things. And I think that's very important. When you are active in making things, it's very different. You're learning, your intelligence is at another level. And I think that is the important part. So that's where that study came from. It's a very meditative practice. So if you're doing that, it keeps you focused. So in very different ways, yeah, you can learn things. So it's not necessarily spinning, it can be anything, any kind of a craft or a technique.
You also participate in workshops where you go and learn, organic agriculture. You also, you're doing many other things as well. And so I think to bring at least our conversation to end, if you can tell us the projects that you're working on right now, the future ideas that you have, before we open the floor to students, because I think they would be very eager to ask many questions. If you can tell us something about what are the things you're working on now? What are your future ideas, or what is it,
So as a brand, our vision is to take indigenous practices to the world, globally. When we say indigenous, we mean it indigenous, like something really been done for many years, hundreds and hundreds of years, and where its consumption of energy is very low. These practices have been passionately be done by these artisans. Everything, nothing to harm the environment. Now, keeping this as a theory, how do you grow? How do you scale? we don't want to do just limited pieces. We want world to celebrate it. Of course, things will be expensive because you're making it in that way. So we've been working on a whole space where there are manufacturing units in the urban spaces. So we manufacture. We're sitting in Ahmedabad. Might be a fabric. If you're working within handloom, then the fabric is coming from a rural spaces. And today, even 70% of your population is still in the rural areas, and the urban areas is where the opportunities are, is what would we call it. So in this garment industry, we are based in an urban space, we work with the rural area, we're making a fabric, bring it back to Delhi or in Ahmedabad or in Bombay, and we manufacture things in here. So instead of that, we said, why don't we move everything to the rural space, and how can we just make from seed to the final making in that space so what we need to do is teach how do you do a beautifully crafted product, because stitching is not something been part of our history. It has been new of last 70, 80 years old. So how can we bring that, teach that in rural spaces and start making a world-class finished product there. And so we are in process of building these kind of centers where you work with the artisans around and you bring in the know-how which they don't have. Because one of the things is system design, which we've been working for decades, because all our garments are made in the rural spaces. We do a unique number coding to each and every pieces. Like how your mobile phone has a unique serial numbers or a car has, our garments have a unique coding. What it does is that it records date, time and place of every individual worked on that pieces, from a tailor to a weaver to a dyer to any artisan who worked on it, because there are multidisciplinaries of work which we do, jugalbandis of different crafts we do. So a space which we're trying to build in the rural space where we can do it. Today we have that a temporary setup which we made in Kutch. So we call it a Kala Khoj. So where a designer can go and try to thrive and work with these artisans and make something complete there, with the kind of facilities which are there. So one doesn't have to work in the export houses, which we call them, or manufacturing units in the urban spaces, but you work with the craftsmen within there. And it can be also there in West Bengal, it can be in Odisha, or it can be even in Ladakh, because this is the opportunities which we as a designer needs it. And this is something which we've been building and taking the know-how we have and placing it in the rural spaces, so even many other designers can work with them and have an access to this know-how. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it was quite insightful, and I think now I should not stand between this tens of hundreds of students here as well as in other NIFTs who would be very eager to ask questions to you or to have a conversation with Himanshu. So if we can open floor to them. And he also wanted more interactive sort of a session.
You guys can come as close as you want and discuss, and I have no problem. Happy to share as much as I can.
Any questions? Any questions? Online questions? Do we have somebody? Our online community?
There is a question.
Yeah.
Challenges I faced in opening the brand. I think I was naive when I started the brand. I didn't know what I'm getting into. Though I had almost 7 years of consulting experience with various big brands, and we were starting something in India. The larger challenge was because we were wanting to work more and more with the indigenous practices in early days. Today, we only work with them. Early days there were mill and indigenous practices, but we stick to that, and that was the larger challenge of how do we overcome. And we take a problem and we dissect that problem into pieces and we try to solve smaller elements, and that's how we solve the larger problem. Because when we get a problem, we get into a panic mode, but I think the way forward is to kind of look at it into a smaller pieces. We need to dissect it down. And that's how we managed to do it. And it took us a decade to solve the entire system design, to work with the artisan and build a model of doing it. So something which I said, a unique model, unique code system we have, which is linked with our ERP. Today our garments have an NFC code. So NFC chips into them. So if you have an NFC phone, you can scan it and you can know the makers behind it. So it's a whole journey which has happened from then to now. Another would be always funding. So you will always have limited sources of money. So you need to decide where to use it, what to use it for. Yeah. But before I'll get into a brand, I'll question myself, do I have something unique to tell? Do I have something which I want to share with this world which is not there? What is it that am I bringing in? And that needs to be very clear, because product which sells first and then the story kind of helps you to back it up. I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, Tanisha, do we have
There's
some
a
online?
person in the end.
The very end.
Yeah, just a very general question. How did you find your inspiration, or what was like, yes, this is my collection, I want to launch this? And I mean, what inspired you to create your first collection? I want to know that.
Oh, the first collection, it's a story in itself. um, yeah, so we were in process of building a brand, because we didn't put a timeline that we're going to launch it on this season or something, but we were making a brand book. What will that brand look like? What is that brand wants to do? And it was a menswear centric brand which was building up, and that's how that brand book was coming out, and visually and the communication we wanted to do. And we were been thrown with an opportunity to launch the brand in the Delhi Fashion Week, which Gitanjali and Sumit Nair had started it in 2008. October was one of the first shows, and they kind of gave us a free slot to just showcase it there. And we were not ready with the collection, and we took that opportunity and we kind of built a whole. We knew what we wanted to do, but we didn't have a collection ready. But we had a 1 month time, and we designed the whole collection in a month's time, and we launched it. So, I mean, that's how that became like 40 different looks which came out with whatever limited resources we had, and we design. I like to design things where the back has a more to offer rather than the front. So I don't like to put things right on the front, on the neck or anywhere, but I would like to put it on the back. And this was a conversation happened with the while we were showcasing on the ramp with the choreographer, and I said I want to show the back first rather than the front, and we ended up making models walk backwards and show the collection, and that's how it happened. Of course, some people thought it was a gimmick, but yeah, it was because we wanted to show the back first and then the front, and that's how that whole first collection was launched then. Yeah.
Hello. So right now you shared the story of your first collection. So there's always a part ki what is next. So while working on some new collection, how one should or how you are always creative and inspired while designing a new collection?
So when you building a brand, right? So you always have a core, and you need to build a core. So and the core always stays, and then everything else is you are adding, and if that is becoming successful as in different categories or new product, you are linking it to the core. So what is that core which you have? And that's where your brand would stand, and that would always become in that core. Also you will have different classics, you will have things which you innovate as a new idea. So it's how you designing your entire collection, how you're breaking it down into the pieces it is. So eventually, you might not have a larger thing which you are focusing on a designing, but you're looking at smaller bits which you're looking at designing. So if it's a print side, is it a look, is it a textiles, is it a, what is that it? And then eventually putting the whole look together. So there are different ideas which you kind of keep picking up and put them together. And the brain doesn't stop, it keeps going on. Sometimes you have to stop because you don't need to give everything out in one go. So you might have to keep it for the next season, might be is not the right time to even do it. Can you even produce it? Can you even, is it the right way of making it? I mean, there are various questions which comes in. So yeah, so it's a smaller ideas which kind of compose the whole collection together. If you talk about a garment, then there is a story behind it. Yeah, but a whole collection, there will be various stories which come kind of sew it together. For us particularly.
That one.
There's somebody here also who needs the mic.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. Sir, how do you strike a balance between sticking to the design aesthetics and adapting to changing trends?
Yeah, so trends, if I, it's not that specifically we would be looking at trends, because we like to do what we really like to make or what we are inspired from. So we are not like a trend follower, I would say. So I'm not saying that we would be a trend creator, but we like to do what we are. So we like to make new visual vocabularies. We like to inspire people. We like them to make things which are, you know, which have a soul into it. So we just creating things as we've been working. So so we're not getting restricted to what is happening in the world or what is the trend around it. So yeah, it's not that the trend is about slim garments and we'll start making a slim garment. So yeah.
So I had a question. I really like throughout the whole session, one part really stuck out for me, which was like the campus earlier. It did not have like a lot of things around it, and you had to look for inspiration with what you had. But now we have a lot of information all around us. So how do we really look like in the right place, and how do we focus on the right things and not get like swayed away by all the excess information around us?
Yeah, cut yourself from everything. Start from phones. Yeah, and you will see the difference. Your mind will start processing things in a whole another world. I mean, that's why people say to meditate, and but if your work is such, you don't need to. But if your work is not, then you have to. It's very simple. Switch it off the phone, lock yourself up, or you work somewhere. Then you just be with yourself, and you will see a difference coming in. It's just that we have lost our focus time to very small level. So we need to work towards it. And it will take time to build this exercise, because it's not going to happen that you will do first time and you will see a difference. But you'll need to do it and build it, because you have to build your focus level from 2 minutes or 20 seconds to 1 minutes to an hour. And that's when it'll happen. And because there's so much you have been processed, the mind needs rest and it needs to look at it. And if you cut it, you will start looking at things very differently. And even if you come out from that zone, you look at it very differently. So I think it's important to do that. And I would say phone should be banned in the definitely in the teaching part, because you don't need it. You're there to learn. I mean, this is distracting you. So if NIFT has not done it, they should do it. If they're not doing it, you should do it. I mean, yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Hello.
I also want that question. I also get a lot of resumes, yeah.
a lot of us are going to go for our internship soon. So I would like to ask, what should we focus on? Like when you get an internship, what all things should we focus on? How we should explore and take the opportunity in a more meaningful way?
Okay, should I tell you my internship story? I did my internship in Trinidad and Tobago. So I went all the way where I wanted to go because I was looking for. So I did it in Trinidad and Tobago, my internship, because I was looking for a costume designer, and I ended up working with a guy called the Robert Young, the cloth brand. But going back to your question, I mean, why? One is why you going for an internship? What is that you're looking for? And the second is what is that you can offer? Going back to our discussion of a skill, if you know your skills, you know what you're good at, and if you put that on the top, then it's easy for anybody who's looking at it. This is what you are good at, because if you don't offer your service, you're not going to get anything from there. So if you're going there and that you're going to get all that what you want, then you are making a mistake because you are an intern. So what is that you can offer, and you should be putting your best in the front. Now, if you're applying in a fashion design studio, your skills have to be anywhere for a fashion design course. I mean, digital is one part of it. I mean, there are hundreds of them will do digital. Everybody can do it. So why would they pick you up? What are you good at they're going to pick you up for? So, I mean, I know that this pattern making, nobody's interested in it, but that is one of the biggest skill required if you want to be a fashion designer. And if you don't know pattern making, you don't like it, fashion designing is difficult because you need to know how to sculpt a piece. You can do something else part of in the fashion design, but if you don't know how the garment is made, again, you can't be part of a fashion design part. So it's important what is that your skill will be, and that will help you. So if you put that in front when you are talking to anybody, when you're writing to anyone, it is there. Just remember that we on the other side get resumes from, or this internship from everywhere, huh? Like thousands of them. So why will one open your email? So you need to question that, why? And then you send this behance of all the things to see, why will I see 10 things? So what is that you want to really show? What is that you're good at? And I think the best of the people will pick you if you are really good at it, if you have mastered that. So, and you have to master something. So, and of course it will take time, but you will at least start putting that in front.
Yeah.
So there was a person who visited us few months back through a common friend, and she's a fashion designer from Australia, and she was traveling to Europe, and she wanted to work there, and she made sure her pattern making skill was good, and she managed to work with Alexander McQueen. So because there was an opportunity which was there in McQueen's place, and she just took it. A fashion designer doing a pattern making, I mean, that's a big asset I would ever have. I mean, we are very fortunate because our fit maker is one of the world-class person, and he is 3 years senior to me of NIFT, and he helps us with our fits. So yeah, I mean, it's a very, very important thing because that is one of the part in a garment making which is there. Sorry, yeah, there was a question.
Hi, sir. So what was that fine point of realization in your life that now is the time that I want to build up on my brand, that now is the time that I want to start it? Because you worked many years before that. So what was that realization?
I mean, there were many realizations that because we were consulting various companies in India and outside India, designing collections, art directions. So I have creative directed Red Loop line for Levi's earlier. I've done things in Italy. I've worked with export houses to make their, because manufacturing units, when you are a brand working, say, in Italy, and you want to design a collections, we are actually very fortunate being in India because you have access to things of manufacturers or anything you want. Somebody sitting in some village in Italy working with a, say, a brand like Diesel or any other brand, they don't have access to any of these creative making things. They just drawing things, sending these tech packs to India or whichever other country, and then a merchant there is trying to execute what they had vision and then making into a garment and sending it back. If that merchant doesn't understand what he's trying to say, there is an issue. So I'm talking way back in 2003-4, we were trying to make this garment manufacturing a beautiful design studio where they understand, or having these merchants who can understand what they want, this designer wants when they're sending these tech packs, what, how are they thinking, or we make a collection in these export houses and they present these collections to the brands, and then brand kind of see their capabilities, which helps them in what I am thinking as a designer because they see sculpted pieces and then they kind of take it forward. One of these conversations would be where we would be sitting in a Max Mara office and we had this collection with us and I'm representing one of the manufacturers and I used to speak Italian, and I mean I can speak still some Italian, and there is a designer who's showing work to us and they show us a tech pack and this is what I want, this is the next collection, blah blah, it's like a green jacket, and I remember very well. And she finished what she wanted to show, and then I opened a bag and I put a jacket on the table, is actually 90% of what she had drawn. Because they were all ripping apart some of the other brands or designers, and we knew this trend was going on. So that jacket was like that, and of course that girl kind of flipped because she's like, what the hell happened? So and so it is a there were opportunities which were telling us that how things have been building, how our collections have been designed, but that's not what we wanted to do, and that kind of gave us a confidence that we should be doing our own collection, and we had a look and feel which was not there, and contemporary side we wanted to bring it to India because India is still about Indian wear, and that's how we started. And we were more about cuts and silhouettes. Yeah. Also, one thing I wanted to say, surface ornamentation doesn't make you a fashion designer. So please remember this, huh? It doesn't. So if you tell me that you do surface ornamentation, there is nothing. I mean, everybody does that. So please remember this. You need to sculpt it. Fashion designer makes a garment from top to bottom. You need to become a silhouette designer. You need to design, draw and draw and draw and draw. So yeah.
I think
We over the time? But you have to be a craftsman, no? So I will go to a craftsman for a craft. What is that you will offer? So if you have an innovative idea which is work with a craft, so that you can offer to whoever you want, and if it is in their league of work, so you need to understand the language of the brands. And if you think what I am working on is something will resonate with these designers or brand, then they will have a dialogue. If it is, you can't go with anything to anybody. You need to see if it is making sense to them. So there are basic principles we'll have to just clarify. I mean, I innovated something brilliant. Now, who is the right person who would like it? You need to study them. You can't study them just by flipping 10 seconds or one day. I met somebody, a designer, a fashion designer, and said that, I studied a brand in a day, and you can't. You need to really dig deeper and understand the brand more and more and more. How are they thinking? How are they going behind it? Yeah. Why?
why collaborate with other designers?
Other designers? we haven't collaborated with other designers. We have collaborated with other artists or musicians or painters. Yeah, different disciplines, architects. नहीं समझा मैं, फिर से बताएंगे. Right.
90% डिज़ाइनर्स ये करते हैं कि उनके पास एक्सपीरियंस होते हैं और अलग उनका टारगेट ऑडियंस होता है. लाइक पेरो कोलैबोरेट विथ मैकडी और प्रोडक्ट्स. उन्हें पता है कि टारगेट ऑडियंस होते हैं उनके जो उन्हें ग्रोथ देंगे.
Collaborated with whom?
मैकडी, मैकडोनल्ड, पेरो.
No, they didn't collaborate with McDonald's.
I see something like similar.
Yeah,
Actually-
they collaborated with Hello Kitty.
हेलो किटी, सॉरी.
Right.
ओके, तो ये कोलैब तो करते हैं. मैंने आंसर्स रिसर्च ढूंढे, मेरे को बस ये पता चला है कि उन्हें टारगेट ऑडियंस से मतलब है कि लाइक उनका ऑडियंस बढ़ेगा, मार्केट ऑडियंस बढ़ेगा. तो बेसिकली कुछ ऐसा हो सकता है लाइक विदाउट मार्केट ऑडियंस, लाइक अनटैप्ड आंसर जो मुझे इंटरनेट पे ना मिले. एज ए डिज़ाइनर आप जवाब दो.
So there is something called assumptions we all live with, okay, and this is I'm taking from his questions, and everybody has this problem, so it's not about him. I would have, you would have, and we do this in our life. So we don't need to assume what they would do until unless we know from them. So हम सोच रहे हैं कि वो टारगेट ऑडियंस के लिए करा है, हमें पता नहीं है, तो मैं वो assumption पे ना जाऊँ. तो उन्होंने करा है, वो पसंद है, तो वो बात अलग है. आप सोच रहे हो, उन्होंने आपको बताया नहीं, तो हम क्यों अज्यूम कर रहे हैं? कैसे कोलैबोरेशन हो हमें पता भी नहीं है. तो वो टारगेट ऑडियंस हेलो किटी को चाहिए था, पेरो को चाहिए था, किसको चाहिए था, किसी को नहीं पता. तो वो नहीं पता हमें. So you can't pitch as a student until unless you have something concrete and worked. As I said, if your idea is there, which you need to build it, you need to sculpt it into a piece, you need to have a collection, and you showing it to the person you want. You have to reach out to them and you have to show it to them. But you can't be just telling a story verbally. So if you have to back up with things. So as I said, if I get a resumes of internship 10,000, how do you qualify for an internship? There has to be something which you are telling. The same way, if you're pitching an idea, then it's even a larger thing. In those hundreds and hundreds of email, why would one answer you? So what is that you would have? So you need to first present that in the right way. You have that idea solid. You need to foolproof it from many people, various ways, before you think that it is it. We assuming कि ये सही है और ये आना चाहिए. So we need to first foolproof that also. So there are different ways of doing it.
As we come to the end of this insightful session, I want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Himanshu Shani for sharing his inspiring journey and invaluable insights with us. Hearing about your experiences, especially as an illuminous, has been truly motivating and has provided us with a deeper understanding of how passion, purpose, and perseverance can lead to remarkable success. To formally conclude, I now invite a respected director, Professor Dr. Sameer Sood, to present a token of appreciation to our esteemed guest and moderator. On behalf of NIFT Gandhinagar, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all who made today's event truly special. First, a big thank you to our Director General, our Dean, and our Director Gandhinagar for their invaluable guidance and support in making this session possible. A special thanks to our esteemed guest, Mr. Himanshu Shani, for taking the time to join us today and sharing your incredible journey and wisdom. Your insights have undoubtedly left a lasting impact on all of us. Lastly, we extend our thanks to our wonderful moderator for facilitating such an engaging and insightful session. Your thoughtful questions and seamless navigation truly enhance the experience for everyone. Finally, thank you to everyone who joined us today for this meaningful event. Your presence and engagement made this session truly memorable. Thank you all.